Canto 6, Dublin City. We travelled through the night on the open sea. Now only we two stand upon the deck and look upon the unrelieved darkness, which means the west and our beloved homeland. Soon is the night gone past. Out of the east a glow of light illumines Ireland's coast, the coast before us and our destination. Soon we draw closer and we see the city, see Dublin in the pale grey prior to dawn. The ship sails across the bay and strikes the quay in this port that we know so well. We land and make our darkened way into the city, the centre buildings and then further north. And here we find a street to both well known, North Frederick Street. Here you were born, dear Harry. Here you grew up. Was not your father's house both home and artist's workshop all in one? Go we around the corner to the street they call Great Denmark Street. Lord Norbury, the hanging judge, who sentenced Robert Emmet to die upon the scaffold for the crime of raising a rebellion to free Ireland, lived in a house here. Further up the street is Belvedere, at first a stately townhouse belonging to an Anglo-Irish lord, then used by Jesuits for their Dublin school, a school which you attended in your youth, like James Joyce, and like me, though later on. I know your parents weren't enthusiastic about the sermons Jesuits at your school delivered on the pain of souls in hell, lost in the fires eternal of damnation. Joyce heard them all and gave account of them in his first book, A Portrait of the Artist. Your father was quite right, I must admit. The Jesuits in those days just overdid things. They meant it well, at least I hope they did. I must say I was spared such fire and brimstone. In my day, hell was not a thing to dwell on. This place called Belvedere need not retain us. I think we've learned what the place had to teach us. Let us go on. This urban mesh of streets is all well known to you. Here you grew up. There was your father's house, the artist's workshop, and dwelling for his wife and family. The Jesuits had their school almost next door, but we shall say no more of them. All said, if not by you and me, then by James Joyce. Now we advance to stately Mountjoy Square, with fine town houses from the Georges' time, when Dublin was the Anglo-Irish stronghold, and they enjoyed their undeserved sway. Look, Harry, in the glimmering light of dawn, a man approaches who would speak with us, and yet he has no head. To be precise, he bears his head upon his hands before him. You know Cephalophory. This is one. Yet he is not a saint, but lost his head in the long luckless cause of Irish freedom. 'Tis Robert Emmet, who in 1803 was hung and then beheaded by the English. Tell us so, patriot, is this not so? It is indeed, the head spoke from his hands. 200 years ago, in Thomas Street, I paid the price of honour on the scaffold. They hanged me first, then cut me from the rope, and with the axe struck off my gory head. What then was to be done with head and body? No grave, no epitaph awaited me. It was as I had wished. That very night I seized the initiative and rose up then, and taking first my head upon my hands, I marched away, treading without a sound, through this the sleeping city, hoping soon to find the graveyard that would suit my needs. In fact, I never found it. but the joy of walking freely where I wished was pleasant after the long weeks spent in prison cells, and therefore I decided to keep on walking. Since then I walked the empty streets of Dublin, from fall of night until the break of day, caused me to fade away, still with my head. How charming is the account you give, dear Robert. I trust that you too, my dear Harry, see that there are options on the other side, although one may not have a proper grave. But tell me, Robert, was there not some issue about an epitaph to mark your tombstone? Indeed, the head replied. Before the court I had already said I wished for none another man might write upon my grave. For even assuming that a grave was granted, which was a lot to ask, the government would ne'er permit that glory, praise, or thanks should be bestowed upon my memory. They called me traitor, rebel, put to death because of his foul treason against King George. For this same reason I eschewed all wording, but later, when my country would be free, an epitaph could be composed. Dear Robert, it took 200 years and more till Ireland obtained her freedom from the English yoke. Think you it might be time for epitaphs, and for a lasting resting place for you? A sigh came from the head. Quite right, and yet... Yet what? Have you your doubts or scruples still? I have become too used to being a walker through Dublin town and never making halt. In one word, it's become my fate to live a restless ghost like this and do without a normal grave, and I prefer it so. Do you hear that, Harry? It's his destiny, a destiny he welcomes and accepts, to be without a grave and spend his time just pacing from one graveyard to another. There is, said Emmet, an additional reason for a beheaded man to seek a grave. The prisoner put to death enjoys no rest. For one thing, you are sure to be cut up and have your head and body parts displayed upon the city gates. That was not my fate. The hangman just decapitated me, then held my head up for the crowd to look. People of Ireland, see a traitor's head. Yet English law provides that he who dies upon the gibbet, like the suicide, may not be buried in a blessed grave, but elsewhere in unconsecrated ground. There too he is not likely to rest long. The sack-em-ups or resurrection men, those rascals fearing neither God nor man, are always on the lookout for fresh bodies. They come around at very dead of night, and dig you out and lay you on a cart. Then off they go. For them, the early bird catches the worm, as that old proverb says. They seek those of the medical profession who pay for bodies, for their hardy students need corpses to dissect if they're to learn the ins and outs of Hippocratic art. Now, when you think of all these things, it's clear that even traitors, rebels, freedom fighters, think an abiding graves to be desired.